Jim was a normal 9-year-old boy, like all boys his age. He liked cars, soccer, and animals, especially dogs. Maybe that's why his best friend was Spark, a dog he found one day at the edge of the woods, dirty, rain-soaked, and hungry. From that day on, Jim and Spark became inseparable, although Jim's mother sometimes scolded him when she found paw prints on the door to Jim's room. Jim lived on the edge of the forest at the foot of the mountain in a small house, the ranger's house, as the locals called it. His father was a forester, so maybe that's why Jim knew all the hidden paths and the shadows of the ancient trees that seemed like stalwart guardians of the mountain rising behind them. Jim wanted to be a pilot, to fly to the clouds and beyond. He was fascinated by the blue immensity of the sky, and whenever he could, he would run as far as his feet would carry him to the top of the mountain, to a cliff the locals called Ghost Rock because strange lights often appeared and disappeared without anyone understanding why. But Jim wasn't afraid. He climbed up the cliff like a black goat, and Spark jumped up behind him with his tongue hanging out. That Sunday in April, Jim had been awakened by the sun's rays, which warned him that it was late. Glad that the rain that had kept him indoors for days had stopped, Jim hurried out of bed, quickly pulled on a pair of sports clothes, and broke into a run, calling out to his mother from the doorway, "Mom, I'm taking Spark to the woods." At the sound of his name, Spark dropped his favorite toy and, ears flapping in the wind, whirled after Jim, ready to hit the flower pot by the front door. Jim ran as fast as his legs would carry him, eager to get to the top of the cliff faster, to look up at the clouds and imagine himself flying the planes that left a trail of smoke in the clear blue lit by the sun's rays. Spark ran after him, tongue hanging out, regretting that he didn't have time to stick his nose through all the thick bushes they passed. When they reached the top of the cliff, Jim picked up Spark and lay down on the sun-warmed rock, smiling. He thought about what the dashboard of an airplane would look like, and what it would be like to hold the handle that made this dozen-ton colossus float like a flake above the clouds. Suddenly, unusual sounds interrupted his dream. Muffled voices came from somewhere beneath the rock, as if the rock were speaking. Spark, seeing that Jim had risen and was listening intently, pricked up his ears as well. As the voices grew closer, Jim stood up and whispered to the pup, "Spark, let's find them, boy." "Who's that? Come on, search, Spark, search, search." Spark had heard this word many times. Jim would say it to him when he didn't have his backpack for school, or when it was cold outside and he'd put a silly thing on his head that covered his hair and called it a beanie. He could always hear Jim say, "Look, Spark, look." Now, he wasn't even going to school. He wasn't even S. So what was he supposed to be looking for? The puppy looked at Jim in confusion, even though he kept repeating, "Look, Spark, look." When he saw Jim walking slowly and quietly, looking around carefully, he knew he had to find the voices that had spoiled their walk. So he went too, nose in the grass, sniffing. He didn't know what either, but he was sure he would find out.